Hi, my name is Brad Rourke, and I'm the President and CEO of Scottie Resources. I'd like to welcome you today to a 2023 year-end update where we are today within the company. Of course, we'll be making forward-looking statements, so beware of that, as all of us in this industry have got to put this disclaimer up. We'll start with a little bit different than what we've done previous presentations. A, to mix it up, and B, we're going to give a little bit more information than we usually do because we have a little bit more time. Usually we're regulated to a 15 or 20-minute presentation, and it's really, really hard to really articulate the story. So I think we're going to try and do 45 minutes here and get out a bunch of information that we don't normally get to talk about, but which really excites us here at Scottie Resources. We just completed our 8th year. I was an investor in this company. It was called Something Different. I took it over in 2016. And for the first 3 years, I self-funded the company. And I'd like to point out that it was 100% retail at that time. Since 2019, which was our first drill season, we've taken that 100% retail to about 33% retail. And we populated our little chart there with very, very strategic shareholders, larger shareholders. In fact, we have 4 individuals that own just under 10% of the company, and a whole host that have larger positions, anywhere from 2 to 5%. I currently own 14 million shares of this company, and so just under a 5% weighting myself. So things that I think we should look at into the future from 23 and beyond is that if you look at our stock chart, we're quite proud of it. It's been a challenging industry for us and everybody else, but we really have not lost anybody any money from a private placement point of view. And those large shareholders that we have, we're all in at actually a price a little bit higher than what you can enjoy today, but it's at 22, 23 cents for the last 5 years. So, but the fact that we've held that value, I think that's important and actually should be something that to be considered. We'll also talk about what 2024 is going to look like. I think for 2024, we still have news to come out from our program of 2023. Probably around 8,000 meters yet that we've yet to release. We're excited to get those out into the new year. 2024 will focus on the retail market, of which up until now, I've really been focusing on getting partners, bigger entities to help support the stock, where we're at a 33% retail weighting now. And I think that's one of the things that we will be really focused on in 2024. On top of that, we are in Core Shack this season, coming up in the near future at the Roundup in Vancouver, VRIC, and we'll be doing all the usual conferences in 2024. Jump to the next chart on our directors and senior management. Nothing's really changed from this point of view in 2023, with the exception of the addition to Ellie Owens to the board of directors. We had an extra spot on that board, and we're searching for the right person. And Ellie just kind of fit all the boxes we wanted to check. She's a geologist. She has a legal degree, worked for some bigger companies in the past, and really brings that energy and that younger energy that's needed into this junior exploration realm that we're in. And we're really happy to have her, and very useful board member. And with that, we have Ernie and John, and we won't go through the names, but all have extreme success within this industry and all have different skill sets. And what I like to point out is nobody knew each other before the formation of the board, which I think makes us a little bit more unique, meaning it wasn't a bunch of my friends that are just going to say, hey, Brad, go with what it is you think. I truly run the company via the board. And I think what we put together is a well-rounded skill sets to help guide us through this exercise. From there, we'll go on to the next. So if you're willing to invest in junior exploration, whether it's Scotty or any other company, I would say that these 5 boxes that we have here is that you need to understand. They don't need to be checked completely, but whether it's Scotty or anybody else, you need to understand those. And what I'm going to go through this presentation, I'm going to definitively check all those boxes. One being, are you working in the right jurisdiction? some jurisdictions just aren't investable at this moment. You need to understand what the infrastructure constraints are. I don't think you need to have the infrastructure for a successful story, but you need to understand that if the project that you're invested in is lucky enough to find a deposit, what are the constraints with infrastructure and permitting and such? Will this even be allowed to become a mine? A commanding land position is something important, and I think that's changed in the last 10 or 15 years. Gone are the days where a prospector could have a small little tiny postage stamp, drill an exciting hole, in the market will reward you for it. I believe what we'll see here is in the future is that $50 million market cap will be a smaller story. And not only is it a deposit that you're looking for that we can move on to the next entity or major or mid-tier producer, you also have to offer exploration potential on top of that. And what we'll show with Scotty is that we do have that district scale land package. You need the right people to be able to draw this, bring this across the line, of which we just demonstrated that we do, and access to capital. And so those 5 boxes are what, whether it's Scotty or any other story, you need to understand as an investor. And we'll go through our presentation. We'll check these boxes off for you. So jurisdiction. We operate out of the Golden Triangle. If you're watching this video, I don't think we need to explain to how important the Golden Triangle is, but really what I think is the most important part is I was part of the Eskay Creek staking rush. Slept 100 days at Bronson Slope, which was the snip mine. But even when that heyday in the early 90s, never have we seen concentration of big money come into the area like we have now. And most notably, Newmont. Newmont bought my neighbor, which was Newcrest, which bought my neighbor, which was the Pritium asset. So Newmont is by far and away the largest land position in the area, but it's also the world's largest gold company. And I think for investors, you just know that this area is not going anywhere. It has a long running room from today into the future. And of course, our neighbor to the south is Ascot, which should be turning and producing gold in the next 6 months. I think it could be earlier, but let's just say 6 months. Well, and then we have BHP. We just have a lot of these bigger entities that have put roots into the ground. That should give you confidence as an investor that this area is important and you're in the right jurisdiction. We'll go to the next there, please, Gord. Infrastructure. I can't emphasize enough how this is a big advantage for us at Scotty. As you can see, most of the lands that we have are road accessible and power. There's deep water shipping facility in the town of Stewart, which is just 40 kilometers down from Scotty Gold Mine. There's a 4-season road. We also have mine permit at Scotty. We just drive by the Ascot properties to get to Scotty every day from the town of Stewart. And then we have the town of Stewart, which helps support our drilling efforts, which is the reason our all-in drill costs this year were $315 a meter, including geophysics. That's a true all-in cost. And we're great operators, but also that luxury of all the infrastructure that we have allows us to drill more holes, more meters for less dollars, which gives us all an opportunity for success. So I think it's extraordinary, and which makes us completely different than a lot of the other great stories in our area, is that we have a lot of luxuries that nobody else has. We can do the next one there. From here, I'll introduce Thomas Mumford. Thomas Mumford's the Vice President of Exploration at Scotty. Been with the project, I think this is his 6th year as well. Knows the geology well, and he's the reason we've been having such success. From there, I'll let Thomas speak a little bit about the geology and walk you through some of the exciting things that have been happening.
Great. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I'll just step back and kind of walk you through the progression over the last few years to get us to where this point is right now, and kind of put context around what we've been releasing and what's to come in the future here from Scotty in terms of exploration success. So when I came into the project about 6 years ago, the main focus of the company was the Scotty Gold Mine, which was a past producer. It's seen on the left side of your screen here. You can see 3 adits just center left. These 3 adits are the main points to access the mine. The bottom one is the mill. So they built the mill underground. Above that was the power plant. And above that is the main adit into the deposit itself. which is situated under this cliff band over here with that high adit up on the slope. Now, the mine itself is a pure-type pyrite-rich vein system that's basically striking parallel to your screen. And then there's multiple vein sets that kind of go in and out of the screen relative to that. And the veins outcrop at surface on that cliff band, and that's really what they started mining. So they identified the veins at surface and started mining underground from that. And then when the mine was in operation in the 1980s, the entire lake bed was filled with water. You can see where we've put in a little bit of a transparency layer there showing what the lake bed would have looked like in the day. Now, interestingly, the lake has completely drained out except for this few small ponds in it now. And the reason it's drained is that south of the screen, off screen here, is a retreating glacier. And that glacier used to dam up the lake, but the glacier has now retreated so much that the lake completely drains out. And really all you're left with is the exposed lake bed covered in some sediments, which gives you a lot of opportunities. And then three main opportunities we see. One is looking for the east-west extension of the Scotty gold mine veins underneath the lake bed, of which we've been exploring for with geophysics. The other is the tailings, exposed at surface now, but were originally deposited under the lake. We've taken about 115 samples from the tails, and they average about 2.1 grams per ton in the tails themselves. But the biggest upside by far is over on the right there. So we made a discovery called the Blueberry Contact Zone. And as we chased it over the last few years, it propagates underneath that historic lake bed. And we've been having success chasing it down to the south until we run off our tenure. Over far on the right there, you also see the Grand Duke Road. That's the main access to the site. Premier Mill is about 20 minutes down the road from us, and our camp is just up over the ledge from the Blueberry Contact Zone. And then you can see Bruce Jack Mine way up in the horizon there, up near the top of the mountain. And I should note that we bought back our royalty for the project just over a year ago. So everything I'm going to be talking about here on Blueberry, Scotty, C&D, those are all royalty-free assets, completely unencumbered from that perspective. So I'm going to start talking off a little bit about Scotty more in detail with geology, and then I'm going to go along to our discovery at the Blueberry Contact Zone. So the Scotty gold mine was a past producer in the 1980s. Produced for just over 3.5–4 years, produced just under 100,000 ounces of gold. Now, the mine permit that was associated with that still exists. It's permit M139. It's a 75,000 ton a year small producing mill mine permit. And when the mine operated, it had quite a high grade of recovery. So the recovered grade was 16.2 grams per ton gold. And if there's 2.1 grams a ton gold in the tails, that means they were mining essentially over 18 grams a ton on average during the life of that mine. And they operated with a high cutoff grade. So the cutoff grade was 10 grams a ton. 10 grams a ton still didn't make it in terms of economics for the mine, because when they started the mine, they took out a $20 million loan in 1981, paying 22% interest. And during the period that the mine operated, the gold price dropped from 700 down to 300. The Grand Duke Mill to the north of them, the copper producing mill, shut down, and therefore the operational costs of maintaining the road were all on them. So Scotty ran into economic problems and the mine was essentially foreclosed on, but they hadn't finished out mining the deposit itself. They had about 2 years of production ahead of them in reserves when the mine shut down at this 10 gram per ton cutoff grade. If you look at existing mines, operating mines, or the new to operate mines like Ascot down to the south, things in the area are operating with around a 3 gram per ton cutoff grade. And the nature of the deposit that we're on is if you drop the cutoff grade from 10 grams down to 3 grams, you get a nice mineralized halo around the existing ore body that wasn't mined out, around the existing stopes. And then you've got the upside on anything that we've discovered since the operation of the mine. And you can see here, we've had some tremendous success and a lot of great drill holes through the project. Now, this was the cornerstone of the company for the first couple of years, but since then we made a discovery at Blueberry, and that's really shifted our focus. We saw an order of magnitude upside on Blueberry, and we've really pushed on that the last few years, and I'll walk you through that discovery. So now Blueberry is located 2 kilometers northeast of the Scotty gold mine as the crow flies. They're connected by roads to one another, and in fact, in this image, you can see at the very north end, that's the Grand Duke Mill to the north, and then the Scotty mine is to the south. The Blueberry deposit that we've identified started off as a vein system. So there's one vein that outcrops at surface called the Blueberry vein, known historically for many years. When we acquired this project in 2019, we aimed to drill it to show that that vein was bigger. Maybe we were looking for something the Scotty gold mine kind of size vein. It outcrops of surface goes from about 30 centimeters to about 4 meters in width, dips moderately to the northwest and strikes to the northeast. So we drilled this hole looking to extend the vein. But what was interesting is we hit a zone of mineralization before the vein that wasn't expected. It didn't look particularly interesting, but it ended up running very favorably and very consistently over the length drilled. With that, we went in the next year to try to understand it, to try to understand the geometry of what we had drilled and exposed ourselves to that first year. So when we did that, we stepped to the north of the vein, stepped to the south. We did a lot of surface sampling, a lot of mapping in the area, trying to understand what it was controlled by. And we came up with the concept of a north-south structure, and specifically a contact between two rock types in the area, a siltstone on the east side and an andesite on the west side. Now, the andesite's a well-known host rock in the area. It's what housed the Scotty gold mine, but the siltstone's kind of known as a dead rock in the area, and it's actually what the blueberry vein truncates against, apparently, at surface. So when we did this, we were quite successful. Drilling to the south there, that 22 grams over 6 meters, that's only 15 meters from surface. And then to the north, great intercepts, 35 grams over 2.3 meters. So we had a structure, and we had now indicated that it looked like it was controlled by this contact going north-south. So in 2021, we went out as far north and south as we could with reasonable geological control. And we said, where is that contact cross? Where can we put our finger on it? And it crosses the road where there's an outcrop there, both at the north and the south end. And we drilled some short holes, 60 to 100 meter length holes, and ended up hitting mineralization right away. At the north end, 34 grams over almost 12 meters. And then at the south there, off the road again, 4 grams over almost 12 meters. These hits were done with a skid-based drill, so we don't need a helicopter to do any of this drilling. In addition to that, we put a hole a little bit deeper. So over here on the right side, 15 grams over 13.5 meters. That's a step down from surface of 225 meters. So by the time we ended 2021, we had now had over 700 meters of strike length. We were down 225 meters. The grades were holding in, the widths were fantastic, and we knew we had a new discovery on our hands. So going into 2022, we really chased after this. We went as far north as we could go until we crossed over a north-bounding fault. That fault is unmineralized, it's post-mineralization, and it does truncate the blueberry structure to the north, at least locally. We've figured out where the offset is, and I'll talk about that in a little bit longer. Down to the south, you run out of running room where you can see the geology. So you've got this historic lake bed and this small road here that basically goes around the margin of the lake. And so underneath the lake is all this modern day sediment. So it's like silts right on surface there. So you can't see the control of the rock. But on the opposite shoreline, we do pick up control on the rock, and we identified where the contact went and drilled a number of holes down to the south, and with great success. So hit 9 grams over 16 meters. Even the furthest hole to the south hit 6 meters of 7 grams a ton. So we were well on our way. And the next slide I'm going to show you is a long section. So it's going from north to south. We're looking from west to east at what this structure looks like over its length. So this is at the end of 2022. We had expanded strike length to 1.55 kilometers. You can see on the north end of the structure, that's the fault that's bound in mineralization to the north. That open gap in the center there, that's underneath that historic lake bed. And you can see the smattering of holes that we drilled further to the south of that lake bed contact. When we went into this year, this is what we started with. And what we did this year is we finished 20,000 meters in early September. And that was spread across 4 primary targets, with the bulk of the meters going into the blueberry contact zone itself. What we did there was we really stepped out and expanded the system as aggressively as we could in all directions. So really drilling a line of drill holes out on the outer edge of this blue contour model here, the fringe of it, which is about 100 meters step out, filling in this gap in the open section here, and then extending it to the south. In addition to that drilling, which took up most of the meters, we also extended it further to the south. So we had identified 600 meters of strike length through geophysics and mapping to where the contact crosses the road and then trends on to what is now Newmont's property boundary down to the south east. So we extended there and we drilled along that structure. In addition to that, we also drilled at the Scotty gold mine. So we had done a geophysical survey in 2022, and we were following up on that with drilling some of these blind geophysical targets that we had identified at the Scotty gold mine. The last target that we approached was the Stockwork Bend area. So to the north side of that fault that controls or truncates mineralization on blueberry, we had figured out where the offset was, how much lateral movement was done on that fault. there's some really nice gold and soil anomalies, and we followed up on drilling that we'd done in 2022, which had identified a bulk tonnage target. So this hole right here, last year in 2022, had drilled 245 meters of almost 0.3 grams per ton gold over the entire hole length, which was an interesting target for us. Now, the contact zone up in the north is a little bit more complicated. We've got an intrusion that exploits the weakness between the andesite and the siltstone. And then we don't really understand what the vertical component is of the fault. We knew how it moved east-west, but we don't know up-down yet. So that's what we just completed this last season. We've been releasing results. We've still got about 50% of our results left to release over the next few months. Here you can see some of the highlights that we've released. And this figure isn't quite up to date today. We have released some of these deeper holes, and we're still on the structure down at a depth of up to 525 meters here. You can see great grades. The widths are holding together. We've started to fill in some pockets, like this nice pocket here at the north end of the structure. We've also had quite a bit of success down in here in the central section. We've been identifying that there's quite a bit more silver mineralization than was known about in the past. The gold-silver ratio increases down to the south, so we're getting more silver relative to the gold, also picking up quite a bit of zinc in the system. Now, at the north end of the structure, we get a lot of visible gold up near surface, but really the rest of the deposit doesn't have much mineralization in terms of visible gold. It's all fairly disseminated gold mineralization. What I'm going to do now is jump into the geological model and the software that we use to view this and control our drill programs during the summer, just to give you an illustration of some of the complexities that we're seeing and just how this thing looks like in 3 dimensions. So with that, I'm going to pull up a micromine model here and show you the distribution of the holes and the mineralization that we've identified and kind of our overarching exploration strategy for the area. So what we're seeing here is a digital terrain model, a DTM, kind of the outcropping topography that we see, overlaid with a little bit of imagery to show the context to where we are. And so I can rotate that around in 3-dimensional space to show you what we're looking at and the topography of the area. Now here we see the Blueberry Road coming around here. The Grand Duke Road coming around the Blueberry system. This is where the Blueberry vein is located. And these gaps in the model here, these are just not our tenure. So it made it very simple to see which part is our terrain and which part is not. So anything that has exposed imagery here is part of our tenure. So right now we're looking at just the surface expression that we can see with our naked eye. I'm going to impose over top of that geology of the area. So here we can see the 3 simple geological units that we're dealing with. So in green, we have the andesite, or volcanic rock. In gray, we have the siltstone, which is part of the Hazelton Formation, as is the green, which is also part of the Hazelton Formation. That's the Unic River Formation andesite. And then the other main rock type in the area is this pink unit, which is the Summit Lake Stock, part of the Texas Creek Plutonic Suite. Now, all these rocks are roughly the same age, about 190 to 192 million years, as is the age of the mineralization at Blueberry. So everything's roughly coeval with one another, a very quick succession between formation of these deposits, or the rock package, and then the mineralizing event as well. So with that, I can also point out, you can see the fault at the north end of the structure. You can see the really strong, prominent fault scarp here through the Texas Creek Plutonic Suite as well. The next image I'm going to show indicates the location of the Blueberry contact zone as the model. So this is a live model that we work with during the year. Every drill hole that we drill that goes through from the andesite to the siltstone creates one individual point that we then model this plane. So when I look in 3 dimensions, we can see the orientation of that plane. Now I'm going to turn off the geology on the surface just to make it look a little bit clearer, but you can see the orientation of this plane and the complexity. This green shape here, this is the tunnels to access the old historic Scotty gold mine, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. But here we have the model contact of the Blueberry contact zone. It's very near vertical, with the exception at the very lower end, it starts bulging out a little bit to the east. And then at the very north end of the structure, it does have a bit of a bulge where it is faulted, which is where we get a lot of the visible gold in the system. So this represents the contact between the siltstone and the andesite in the Blueberry contact zone. The next thing I'm going to put up here is the veins that we have. So we have multiple veins that are roughly parallel to what we have at the Blueberry vein. So that main prominent vein that outcrops the surface that the discovery was centered around. we've found multiple repeating versions of that vein as we've drilled more and more. And to express those, we've modeled them very recently as solids, so as volumes on it. And you can see here that they roughly are oriented very close to one another, similar orientation, striking to the northeast, differing moderately to the northwest. So these veins propagate right through the contact zone and extend from the andesite into the siltstone. And they cut across the structures and the wireframe that we've created for the contact model itself. Now, what I'd like to point out is the distribution of gold relative to that contact. One interesting thing we did this past year is we looked at the relationship between grade and the distribution relative to the contact. And if we do that, if we look at gold versus silver and the distance from the contact, so everything in orange is a siltstone intercept, everything in blue is an andesite intercept, and on the bottom axis, on the x-axis, you've got 0 is right at the contact, and as you distribute yourself away laterally from the contact, these are the distribution of holes that we've hit. So on gold, what you really notice here is after about 50 meters, you stop getting hits, intercepts of about 10 grams a ton. Those really dry off. You've got an exponential shape to the structure. But anything within 50 meters, you have a high prominence of high-grade gold systems in there. And then silver shows it better than gold, but there is a difference in the amount of data for the siltstone side than the andesite side, and that is largely driven by data bias. So in the first few years that we were drilling this, our exploration strategy was to drill from the andesite to the siltstone side of the contact and stop drilling basically once you went in about 15 meters into the siltstone. As we went on, and invariably some of the holes went longer and longer into the siltstone, we started realizing there was quite a bit more mineralization in the siltstone side than we expected. And since this realization, we've drilled holes much longer into the siltstone and had quite a bit of success hitting veins that extend into the siltstone side of it. So there is a bit of exploration upside on the siltstone side that we've now identified that we can go in and back and fill in the gaps through additional drilling. That mineralization that seems that is apparently there that we just weren't recognizing before. Now I'll go back to the model here, and I'll show you how that distribution looks in real time. So if I turn on the assays, these are gold hits. I think it's filtered at anything above a gram gold. And I turn off the veins and just kind of broadly look here. You can see the mineralization is really focused around that contact. And now the veins themselves extend quite a bit out from the contact, but still the mineralization is really focused just around that contact zone, which gives us a nice steeply dipping ore body, which is great from a mining perspective. And you can see the distribution of the veins and that contact and how they interface with one another. So we'll cut a long section now from north to south on the structure here. Look at that mineralization. And you're going to see that some of the higher grade zones here really correspond well with the veins that we have. So it's a predictable model in order to figure out where the highest grade zones are in this structure. And then in between those zones, you get lower grade intervals of mineralization. But all that mineralization is focused along this plane, this north-south contact-driven plane. Now, from a regional perspective, it's interesting that we've got this blueberry contact zone, and then we've got a number of other targets in the area. So in addition to that, we also have, we've got the C and D area. This is blueberry. You've got the C and D area. Up to the north, you've got the Bend vein, which is in the same orientation as the veins of the blueberry. You've got the Stockwork area. And then you've got the Scotty gold mine area. And then you've got the Domino area, which is a discovery about 2 kilometers due west of Scotty, and it's on the same structural trend that Scotty's on. Scotty's veins are mostly extensional in nature and east-west continuing. You can also see the infrastructure tying things together between Blueberry all the way to Scotty that's already existing. Now, if I turn back on the overall geology, you can note that most of these deposits, these targets that we're following up on, are within a certain proximity to that initial intrusion, the Summit Lake stock, which gives us exploration upside on tracing things around and looking for more mineralizing events or structures that are within that kind of realm of the intrusion. And one of those is that we discovered some high-grade mineralization at surface this year, just up in this area. These are new samples from this summer, which would be nice in terms of connecting the C and D area all the way to the Scotty, kind of figuring out another potential system here that would fill in the gaps and kind of create this realm around the intrusive that we see here. And that's kind of a broader going big exploration strategy that we have. We did a bit of geophysics this year. So here is a EM grid. So this one was proposed. This one wasn't completed, but the other one was. We did a large EM grid up here in the Stockwork Blueberry area, extended it down under the lake bed, and then we ran a few lines up over this area to look for something there. And so we'll be correlating that with the discovery at surface this year and likely be a drill target for next year. And with that, I'll pass it back to Brad. Oh, sorry, I'm going to talk about metallurgy there for a second. So in terms of metallurgy, I mean, we saw this as one potential way to de-risk the project. So we knew the metallurgy of the Scotty gold mine. It was a past producer. At one point, they even sent a bulk sample down to the Ascot mill back in the 90s to figure out if it could be recovered there. It was historically a cyanide leach plant. But we went in and we said, okay, we've got 2 mills in the area now that are operating or about to operate. Do we have maximum optionality on both of those mills? Does this ore work through both of them? And to confirm that, we took a composite sample from just the Blueberry drilling from 2022, and then we sent that in for analysis at a met lab. And we asked them to run it through those sheets for Brucejack and the Premier mill. And it worked worked great on both. So we had great gravity recovery and gravity flotation together, which is what the Brucejack mine uses. Had up to 80%, 87% gold recovery, and then up to 97% gold recovery using a cyanide leach. If you do the finest grind size that Ascot would be planning to do, which would be for the Red Mountain ore, and low 90s for ore that would go through the regular Premier mill. And I should note that none of this had any optimization done. It was just kind of a first pass. Does this work with both mills? What's the recoveries? Is it optional? Should we pursue either of these? In terms of optionality of which metallurgical process would you go after. And right now it seems that these are both options. I don't think you need any more metallurgy until you get to a late feasibility study on this kind of project. I mean, the initial results are quite encouraging from that perspective.
Wonderful. Thanks, Thomas. It's exciting stuff. I like to point out too, with all those great intercepts that we've had, we've only done a total of 60,000 meters, and we have well over 30 holes that have produced over 100 gram meters. So there's other stories out there that continually give you these big juicy intercepts. But just to note the fact that with limited drilling over the last 5 years, mostly because we've always shorthanded on able to raise capital, we've really produced some fantastic results with just a limited drill program. So pretty excited about that. So let's talk about the land size, the package. And I'm going to talk about things we don't normally talk about, some of the blue sky that's associated with this. So as you can see, everything in gold is under Scotty's tenure. All those little red dots, those are called mineral showings. Those are documented mineral occurrences that are registered with the government, not necessarily our work, but this historic. If you look at the centerpiece there where it says Scottie Resources in the middle, we call that our Cambria project. Now, that was the accumulation of about probably 8 different transactions. That was a patchwork of different ownership when we came in 2016. But what's really interesting is we own a system there now. There's a system. There's 5 other past producing mines just on that tenure. Now, we've only been doing mapping and trying to drum up drill targets, and we have drill permits for the area. We've just been going after our lowest hanging fruit up at Blueberry Scotty, because it's road accessible. It's our lowest hanging fruit, and the last 3 years have been really, really challenging. But make no mistake, we're going to start talking about a little bit of the blue sky. In 2023, we also staked another 8,000 hectares down at the bottom part of the page there, and that's what we call the Georgia River. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Georgia in a moment, but we drilled 2 seasons there and just haven't gone back in the last couple of years. We had great success, really exciting drill results. But because of the market being what it is, that does take a little bit of a helicopter. So it just makes those drill holes cost a little bit more money. And because we've done so much work, now that land's good for 10 years because we've spent so much money on it. We're not abandoning it. In fact, you could start a company with just that tenure alone. Up to the right, you see a blue circle there. Just a little bit of a white hat. We donated about 2,000 hectares to Mesiad, an indigenous projection zone. There's a little area there they want to protect. We thought that was a great idea in and around Mesiad Lake. Now, I'm from the area. I lived 25 years of my adult life in a little town called Smithers, and Mesiad Lake's a special place. It actually has a freshwater sockeye run in there, and a lot of fun to go fish for those sockeye. So it was not a hard decision for us to donate that land, and that's under the direction of Ross Beatty, who's out there trying to protect a bunch of land in British Columbia. So we're more than happy to be partnering him with that. As Thomas said before, that centerpiece of land is not 100% royalty free. We just haven't pursued getting that because it's just not further along. But when you look at Georgia River and up all the lands north of the Ascot tenure, again, I would like to point out that it's also royalty free. Other things I can say right now for 2024 is that we have optionality now. We've done enough drilling that we're in the position that if I wanted to drill off a resource, we certainly could do that up at Blueberry Scotty. We've always said in the past, if you look at all our past videos, they're all on our webpage for you to look at just to see if the story it has consistency to it, is that we've always said that, our goal is to show a pathway to 1 million high-grade ounces. That is certainly in the rearview mirror to us now. I think we can confidently look you right in the eye and say, look, we're targeting 2 million ounces of high-grade gold on our tenure, and that would include the Georgia River and the past producing Scotty gold mine. With the Georgia River, it's not our work, but there's a non-compliant resource there in a study that we have from 1990. That's before 43-101 was implemented. And in that report claims that there's 270,000 ounces at 20 grams. We're not so sure about that result, that paper, but actually it's very achievable. And we base that on the drilling and the work that we've done. We also went and relogged all the old core and did all that unfun work that you don't get rewarded in the market. But I mean, we are really technically driven. So we'll go off to the next page. But before you do, go back to one more time, Thomas. This is unscripted, and so there's no outtakes. Again, that land is 100% owned. We have no property payments coming at us. A lot of other stories have earn-in agreements or this much work needs to be done in order before you own it. Essentially, we own 100% of that land, so we're in no duress. And again, 10 years good at Georgia River, 10 years for sure up and around the Scotty. And of course, we just keep working on the Cambria. We can go to the next and we'll talk a little bit about Georgia River. These are things we don't normally get to speak about because we're so constrained for time, but this is more the blue sky. As I stated before, everything in yellow we staked. We wanted to expand that Georgia River package because of the success that we had drilling in seasons gone by. Up in the left right hand or the upper left corner, you can see some of the results that we had, and we call that the Southwest vein. But very, very interesting geology. Now, it's different geology than what Thomas was speaking about. This is more of a classic quartz vein system. But as you can see, very exciting intercepts that we've hit. And then we also had a crew out there as we staked more land. Of course, we sent out our billy goats, our geologist mountaineers, and went hunting for rocks. And you can see on the bottom part of the upper left there that we had a very, very nice finding of about 165-gram rock that kind of falls potentially along strike for what we see on that Southwest vein. So again, blue sky, where we have something there, but there's so much more work that we could do there. And we're we're happy to get to it. Again, because of economics, we just kind of been focusing on our lowest hanging fruit, but we just never get to emphasize that we offer more than just the Blueberry and the Scotty gold mine. So that's exciting. We can go off to the next slide there, Gordon. Now, this is the one that is really exciting to me. And, we were looking through, we want to switch up our presentation. And we took this slide from 2019 presentation. I got this map from Ron Nedolinsky when I kind of came out, and I knew Ron from days gone by, and he goes, Brad, I've got this old survey for the area I think you'll find exciting. And it's an old EM survey done in the 80s, and somehow he had it within his files. And all those purple blobs, you can see these are EM anomalies. But what I like to point out is look how it lights up over the Scotty gold mine, C and D vein, and then the Blueberry zone. And this is before we ever drilled a hole at Blueberry. Those results up there are from past drilling, not the work that we've done. I was using this map before we drilled, but what excites me is you look at that little purple blob of that 2D EM survey done in days gone by and how it lights up over both Scotty and Blueberry. Well, now as you go down to the south, look how big those anomalies are. Now, if just one of those gave up to what we found at Blueberry, now all of a sudden you can get, there's a lot more exciting work to be done there. Again, and that follows that trend as Thomas was speaking about on the margins of the Pluton. But also we sent a crew out there, and we'll go to the next one there, Gord. We sent a crew out to go explore in around those anomalies that we had from the map that Nedolinsky gave us. And as you can see, it's we want to get out there and drill it. Now, this really anomalous are the silver numbers. There are some fantastic gold numbers as well, but you got 2,000 gram silver, you got 3,500 gram silver, 2290 silver, and those are directly related to those EM anomalies. And again, some elevated gold, 19 grams and 44 grams, 153 grams. So really, really exciting. We just haven't been able to get there because we're cheap. And again, just add 25 to 30% to our drill costs because of the helicopter aspect. But we're more than just the Blueberry Scotty with that large tenure. So I think this is something that people need to get excited and just kind of dream, as we all have to dream on what this could become. But we're excited. We never get to talk about it. And we've all internally know this. But I think today we get to just show a little bit because, again, people have been following our story, and we usually give the same presentation year after year. But again, let's not forget of what this could become when the market turns and allows us to get at these things. Yeah, that's it for this one page there, and we'll go off to the next. I think that concludes the presentation thus far. We're available if you really want to get into that 3D model from a technical point of view with Thomas. We're just a phone call away. We want to talk to people. I think 2024 with gold hitting that 2,000 mark that we're all excited about, and is 2024 the year that people need to start coming into the junior exploration market? I think we need to be the choice. I want to point out is that because we're in a brownfield site, we have mills on either side of us. What we've just shown you technically is that you're downside protected. I mean, you can imagine that you're protected there, right? Those rocks are going to be mined one day. Again, market's going to determine when that happens. But when you see the success that we've had and how much drilling we've done for the limited amount of money we've had, our money goes into the ground year after year. I don't think you should anticipate anything different than what we are. Again, I said earlier, 2024, I can't tell you the program that we're going to do yet. I can tell you that we have more information coming out, and we're excited to get that out. Very consistent with what we've done the year after year and year. And so stay tuned for more news to come out. But now I'm in the position that we can put a resource together, or we haven't found the ends of Blueberry and Scotty, or do we keep expanding? That's yet to be determined. But it won't be long now where we come out with 2024 plan. You can look forward to that in the new year. Appreciate your time. Merry Christmas to everybody. And we're available. Please consider us. And give us a phone call and ask us some hard questions. We'd love to get at it. Thank you for your time.